Welcome back, everyone. Today we're going to be covering Gates of Hell Soviet artillery. We're going to be starting with the smallest mortar all the way up to these giant 280mm BR5s. Notice we do not have any rocket artillery. We will get that in a separate video, but let's go ahead and hop right in it. So right off the rip, we have the good old 82mm mortar, classic 82mm mortar. This thing has a range of 160 meters, and it has a high explosive and Willy Pete, white phosphorus, So high explosive is going to be very effective versus pretty much any enemies you run into, and the white phosphorus is going to be good for burning down stuff and providing cover for you. As you can see, it can light up some force just a little bit. Pretty good weapon, and it has a very quick reload. So little fun facts about this thing: it was made from 1937 all the way up to 1945, the end of the war. 347,000 of these bad boys were produced, and as you can see, they were definitely a mainstay in the Soviet army. They were originally copied from a French design, and they were used in the Cold War, much like a lot of these weapons that you'll see. It was utilized in the Cold War for quite some time. But let's go ahead. This thing can be called in for manpower, so it's a very effective weapon for close range support. Now this next one is a little bit of a big boy. It's a 120mm. Now this thing has a range of 230 meters. Now these guys even sound like they have deeper voices. The cool thing about this one, so it's got your HE, and it's got 230 meters range, which is pretty dang far. Also has smoke is white phosphorus. It doesn't say it's white phosphorus, but it is white phosphorus. As you can see, it can light things up. But it also has incendiary rounds, which is freaking crazy because these will just burn up the entire area. Now this thing can be very effective on certain maps, like in 1v1 maps. I would definitely recommend using this on Radar Hill. Now this thing was produced from 1938 to 1945. Another mainstay of World War II mortars. 150,000 produced, so about half of these guys. Germans captured so many that they actually made their own copy version of it, so that's pretty cool. And it's still in use in certain places today, so pretty effective mortar, I'd say. You can get this bad boy as a DP call-in for defensive mid or early mid and late war. So it's very effective on maps that we know there's going to be not a lot of movement. It's got pretty long range for a mortar, and Radar Hill and the ranked maps would definitely work, and the urban maps can work out great. Moving on, we have the first field gun / artillery. Now we got the 76mm. We got quite a bit of 76mm, I believe. 4 or 5 of these are 76mm. So this one's first 76mm, model 1902. So this is basically a modernized old field gun. Now it has a range of 180 meters with its armor piercing and high explosive. So armor piercing is going to be able to penetrate up to 48mm armor, so it's going to be effective versus light medium tanks, especially in the early war. Now high explosive, same range, be much more effective versus infantry. Now you can get this as a DP call-in for during early war for offensive doctrine, and so that's pretty useful for offensive doctrine early war. Very effective versus most tanks. From 1902 to 1930s when this bad boy was produced, and about 2,800 of them were actually modernized for World War II. These guys saw some action during the Spanish Civil War on the Soviet-supported side, which they eventually lost. So they might probably got to the Spanish Nationalist Army eventually against the Soviets' will. Moving on, we'll go to the next bad boy. This little short barrel. It's 76mm, model 1927. Now this one has a range of 170 with its armor piercing and 160 with its high explosive. So it's a little bit shorter range, but it also has heat rounds. So let's go ahead and look at this. High explosive, high explosive and heat. Doesn't have any armor piercing. So the heat's going to have 75mm penetrations, which for early war, it's going to be very, very effective. Going to be able to get through most all tanks. One tank you might struggle with is like with the B2, but even then you can get through some weak spots. But all these ones after here, you can see in the line, pretty much all of these have a crew of 4. But this one, yeah, he was made from 1928 to 1943. 18,000 of these were actually made, and they were lights. The good thing about them is they're very light. They could be pushed by a couple guys, or they could be pushed by towed by horses. So very light gun. So it's light just because of how maneuverable this actual weapon was. And I kind of like using it as infantry support, which is very effective at. It's kind of like the Soviet version of the League, but a little bit less or so, I think. All right, now we're gonna move on to the next bad boy. This one's actually kind of a beast. So this is a 76mm OB-25 model 1943. Now it uses the same chassis as the Soviet 45mm, which copied the Pak-36. So pretty interesting. It's a short barrel dude. Only got 160 range, but it has high explosive and it has heat. It has 75mm penetration, and it's got 6-second reload, so it's pretty fast. So let's go ahead and look at this thing. I actually like using this one sometimes because it's very maneuverable, and fast reload means that you can usually get a couple rounds on a tank, and they can't get away especially if you hit them. So this thing is available. This thing was built from 1943 to 1946, just after World War II. It's like an adaptation to better counter tanks. A lot of people call it the baby Zis 3, actually. I'm not sure why it doesn't really look like a Zis, but maybe because of the gun shield. It was used by a lot of partisans and airborne divisions just because it's so light, nimble, moves around. And you can get this in defensive doctrine for late war, where it's very, very effective in the first tiers. So I would recommend it if you're fighting in an urban area, because this thing can be very effective and very mobile to move around. But overall, nice little field gun. Probably one of my favorite ones so far of these first few. Moving on, we have the 76mm 1933. So this thing was made from 1933, as per name, to 1937. 1,200 of these bad boys were produced. Of these, this last one was 5,100, so 5,100 to 1,200. This one, not that many being produced. It was heavy and not practical, because you can see the gun carriages from these last few to this one. It's kind of got the old style for sure, and these wheels can get stuck a lot easier than the more modernized counterparts it's going to be facing. But it does have a range of 190, and it can get through 60mm of armor, which is not bad. It's got a pretty good range. Going to be able to reach out and touch most tanks that's going to be fighting, which is going to be fighting in as earlier mid-war. So it's not bad choice, and it did help lead to the development of the next gun and the development of the Zis 3 eventually. So pretty cool little gun. Not the worst gun for sure, and can be useful early war, but obviously it wasn't that effective for the Soviet army. Did seem a little use in the Winter War though. Next, we're moving on to the 76mm F22 model 1936. And I just want to say, if you guys are enjoying this, make sure you leave a like and make sure you comment down below, because it really helps me out with the algorithm. And I'd really like this to be seen by more people, help my channel out. But moving on, the F22, this thing has a range of 190, just like this previous one, but it's got 58mm of penetration with armor piercing, and it's got high explosive as well. Now, this one was better because it was a lot more mobile. It's a lot more mobile. You can move around a lot easier with trucks and in different terrains. Not gonna have to worry about getting caught in the mud. As you can see, the carriages are quite a bit different. Now this one is made from 1936 until like 1939. About 2,900 of these bad boys were made. Not a ton, but still decent amounts. And it was converted actually by the Germans to shoot Pak-40 shells, which is kind of crazy. The Germans captured enough to start converting these bad boys. You can actually get this in a regular or an early war doctrine. And this thing was actually followed by the Zis 3. Zis 3 is not in here because it's classified as the anti-tank by the Gates of Hell. But as we all know, it's one of the most produced field guns, so it's technically artillery as well. Led to the Zis 3, which was one of the most produced Soviet weapons of all time. It's got 5.6-second reload and crew of 4, as you can see. It's overall pretty good weapon for early war. Now we're going to move on to the bigger caliber. We've got a 107mm model 1910. Now this thing is probably one of my favorites of this entire group, which is pretty crazy. Now this one has a range of 420 meters with its high explosive, but it also carries armor piercing, which goes up to 190 meters with 97mm of penetration. So as you can see, it can defend itself versus some tanks, which is pretty crazy. Now it's got a 15-second reload, which isn't that bad for artillery its size. And with the high range, this is actually one of my favorite pieces from the Soviets to counter barrage with, just because you can get rounds on target so freaking quick. And it's relatively accurate. As you can see, a couple shells we've zoomed in. So So if artillery didn't get out that spot, 3 rounds in, we're taking them out. But it's a very, very effective weapon. And it's probably the artillery I see show up the most, at least in 1v1s. And team games start to show up as well. But this bad boy was made from 1930 to 1941. I mean, 850 of them were modernized for use in World War II. It was used during the Winter War. When it was upgraded, it got a longer barrel and a better carriage. And then you can get this with a regular and early war, and you can get it with Lend-Lease in mid and late war. Pretty cool little weapon though, and I really, really like it. Kind of seems impractical, but in game it turns out that it is actually a freaking beast. All right, moving up caliber, just like we said before. Next is 122mm, first of many that we're gonna go through. This is a model 1910-30, so it's another modernized weapon. Now this one has a range of 330 meters, so it's pretty decent range, not as long as the 107 that we just had, but it's still going to be able to reach out and touch some enemies. And it's 122mm, so it's going to be able to do some freaking damage. Now this carries high explosive and it also carries Willy Pete, so you're going to be able to cover your guys while burning enemies alive if needed, which is pretty awesome for moving in. As you can see, provides some cover for our dudes, burn anybody that's still across the bridge. Works out pretty great. Burning everyone down and giving cover for our guys to get across the bridge. Awesome little thing. So this thing does have 20-second reload, which is a little bit longer, but it is an effective weapon. Now it was made from 1910 to 1941 with 5,900 of these being produced. 5,900, pretty decently produced little weapon. And the ones Soviets like their heavy artillery, so these are the ones I really start to think of. Soviet artillery. It's used in the Winter War, and it was kind of heavy, very, very heavy. As you can see, it's got the old carriage like these ones. Wasn't as mobile as the later ones, so not as the favorite. But it was used in all-round doctrine for DP columns for early and mid. So make sure you guys pick this up, and if you're fighting early and mid, because it can be very effective. Now we got the 122 M30. This one and the next one are probably the artillery that I think of the most when I see the Soviets. So this one, the M30. Model 1938 L22's got 365 range with this high explosive, and it's also got a heat round that's got a 120mm penetration with a 180 range. So if the enemy does try to bring it in and take you out, you're going to be able to fight back. You only got 5 rounds, but you can really make it count if you're paying attention. But this also got the 20-second reload, crew of 4. And this thing with a little bit longer range, you're going to be able to reach out and touch the enemies just a little bit further out. Doesn't have super bad dispersion on it too, so it's not the most inaccurate. You'll be able to do some damage with this thing. Kind of one of my ones I like to use as a Soviets, just because it's so memorable. It's like one of the ones that you think you see, especially when I was playing company heroes. You see these other ones around. Anywho, this thing was made from 1939 to all the way up till 1956, or to the 1950s. So it was made for quite a while. 17,500 of these were made in World War II, so it was very, very much produced weapon. It was used in Syria and Afghanistan in the 21st century, so this century that we're fighting in now. It's been used since then, and it's called Stalin's Little Orchestra up until Stalin's orchestra got taken by the Katyusha, But nice little weapon. Let's move on to the next bad boy. Now this is the one I really think of when I think of Soviet artillery. These two bad boys. This is the 122 A19 model 1931-37. Now this one has a range of 465. So this is another great one for counter battery because it has such a freaking great range. Look at that. We can get all the way out here, reach these guys out here. Very great weapon, decent for counter battery. Also has an armor piercing round, which has 137mm of penetration, which is pretty crazy. Not bad at all. And it's got 220 range on this, so this thing can be used as a heavy anti-tank gun. Absolutely no problem. It's got a slow reload. It's got 25-second reload now, so this one's going to be the slowest one to reload so far. But it can take out tanks and it can take out infantry. You can get this in early, mid, and late all-round doctrines, but it's usually not bought because it's overshadowed by better call-ins like the IS-2, especially in the late war. Now, fun fact about this one, made from 1931-1946 with 2,900 being produced, it was actually used as the gun for the IS-2 and IS-3 heavy tanks. So this is the gun that they saw taking out the Tigers frontally. and challenging king daggers a little bit. Now this specific gun system was used by the Soviets a lot for counter battery versus the Axis artillery that they were facing. But cool little gun. Move on to the next one. Next beast, this 152mm ML20, model 1937, made from 1937 to 1946, with 6800 being produced. So this thing was freaking everywhere. We had has a range of 430, so slightly less than 120, but it's a bigger round. 430 with HE, and it's also got 200 range with its armor piercing, which gets through 125mm. So a little bit worse on the armor piercing, but it makes up for it with the boomness, the amount of boom you get. It's gonna, hopefully we don't kill a horse. There we go, taking out the half a barn right there. Now this thing is freaking titanic in proportion of its shells. This thing can really obliterate most German tanks. If you hit it with this, don't even need to hit it with armor piercing, because this round is so big that it will do the damage. Now as you can see, if you recommend the muzzle brake on this, this is actually the one that is used for the ISU 152 and the SU 152. So the beast killers. Pretty cool that this also is a standalone piece, and it's been argued as the best heavy artillery of World War II, which I'd argue it's pretty close up there. Now you can get this with defensive doctrine with early, mid, and late, and it's a very good, effective artillery that can take out enemies quite quickly. It does have a 30-second reload and a crew of 5, just like the 120. Last but not least, we're going to go into our 3 heavies that we have here. So first we have the 152mm BR2 model 1935. Now this thing is freaking titanic. As you can see, all 3 of them are. This is the longest barrel one, and it's actually the longest range. It's got 520 meters range. Now this thing has got the longest range of any Soviet artillery. It's going to be able to reach out there and touch the enemy artillery right where they're not suspecting it. So as you can see, we can get out there and we can really touch the enemy without them really being able to touch us back. And it's a pretty dang big shell. So these 3 are only going to have high explosive rounds. And it's got a 60-second reload, which is pretty dang long if you ask me. I've got it zoomed in, I'm maxed out so I can fire a decent bit quicker. But even then it's taking a little bit. Now, these were produced from 1935 to 1941 with only 37 of these bad boys being produced, which, you know, they're pretty overly complex, so you can understand why only 37 of them were produced. Now, they were slow, heavy, and they weren't super practical, all 3 of these, unless there's like a siege situation. I like the little chairs that they had, though. Nice little feature for the guys. It's probably going to be there a while to hoist the cannon up to where it needs to be. But you can get this in early mid for the support doctrine. So the DLC Scorched Earth support doctrine, you can get this bad boy, the longest range Soviet artillery. We'll move on to the next one. Now this one's 203mm BR4 model 1931. Now this was produced from 1931 to 1941. It was actually the only one made in actual big numbers, with 870 being produced. Has a range of 440 with its high explosive. So it's still decent at counter battery, but it's going to have a 70-second reload, so it's going to be a little bit longer than its predecessor, but still able to do some effective damage because it's a bigger class shell. Made that pine tree jump right off the ground. Pretty crazy. Now, this was used in the Winter War, and it was found to be very, very slow, only basically used against heavy fortifications. But as you can see with the huge round, it was actually used to obliterate Finnish bunkers, and it did a very, very good job at that, because I mean, if that hits your bunker, you know, there's nothing really you can do. It's like a battleship hitting your bunker. It's pretty crazy. Anywho, this thing can get you can get this in support doctrine, early, mid, and late, so you can get this all year round, like all doctrines. I mean, all war periods, excuse me. Now I'm going to move on to the last but not least. We have the 280mm BR5 model 1939. Now this one only has a range of 315. It's got 120-second reload, but my god. Obviously you're going to need a supply truck to resupply this bad boy, but the amount of shell that it has is just so freaking much. Oh, a little bit past our range while waiting for this small shed, you know. This farmer's small shed, he doesn't need it. But these were made from 1939 to 1941, with only 47 of these being made. My goodness. As you can see, super, super long reload, super huge shell. You're just going to be up the level over here. This is kind of like a Sturm Tiger hitting almost. I know it's like half the size of the shell of the Storm Tiger, but still, this is freaking giant. Huge artillery, great for taking out tanks if you can hit them. Get a hit on a tank, it's gonna be super effective. Can't be good for counter battery if you can hit them, but it does have a shorter range. Just be aware of that. Made that mistake using this in early war for the first time. But you can get it from support doctrine, early, mid, and late. So, make sure you're using it to support this one and this one support. I meant this one is defensive. So BR5 is going to be your support doctrine. But I hope you guys enjoyed this. Leave a like and comment below on what you guys think of the Soviet artillery, which one you like to use the most. And make sure you like and comment to help me out with the algorithm. And I'll see you guys in the next one.